Date Night by Michelle Shipp for English 541 with Professor Vince Moore. "How much sauce do you want on your noodles, hon?" she asked me. "Oh, a medium amount is fine." I watched her float around our tiny little kitchen. She opened the cabinet and pulled out 2 of the plates we'd gotten as a wedding gift 12 years ago. We always used those plates, but tonight seemed different. I'd never noticed how much care she took with our meals. She scooped the linguine out of the pot and carefully twirled it as she placed it on the plate. It looked as perfect as our favorite Italian restaurant in the city. She ladled out the sauce and nestled it right in the middle of the mound of noodles and arranged 5 plump tiger prawns decisively around her masterpiece. "Here you go," she said as she placed the green trim plate in front of me. She went back to the stove to prepare her plate. "It looks great, baby, thank you." I hoped she'd notice the sincerity in my voice. I waited until she sat down across from me, and I raised my glass to her. "To an impromptu date night," I offered. She gently tapped her wine glass to mine. "To tonight," she echoed. I tried to twirl the noodles gracefully around my fork so I didn't ruin her hard work, but it was useless. After 3 less than satisfying bites, I gave up and shoveled a full forkful of the delicious pasta into my mouth, biting the noodles and letting the rest fall back onto the plate. I looked up at her with an apologetic smile. "Good?" she asked. I chewed. "Really good, baby." After a few more manly bites, I'd noticed she had barely touched her pasta, but her second glass of Moscato was almost empty. I decided to slow down to keep her pace. "Do you like it?" I motioned to her plate. "Yeah. I found the recipe online and of course made a few tweaks. Henderson's had the shrimp on sale for $6.99 a pound," she said. She was much better at polite eating than me. I watched as she gathered the noodles on her fork and pulled them onto the big spoon. She spun them masterfully on the spoon until she'd created a neatly wound, perfectly sized bite. I took a few gulps of my cold wine. I wanted to drink her in, like it was the first time I'd ever seen her, but I didn't want her to notice, so through my shoveling and gulping, I stole my glances. She'd called me during the day to tell me Jane was watching Adam that night. She'd said she wanted to cook dinner and just relax. I knew there had to be more than that. She was dedicated to her schedule and date nights were always on Saturdays. After we'd hung up, I thought back to last Tuesday, my day off. I'd been lounging around on the couch, flipping through the channels, when I'd heard the fax machine in her office ring and pick up. She was an instructor for a distance education program, so I didn't think anything of it. That damn thing rang all the time, sometimes in the middle of the night, with students sending her assignments and papers. I'd asked her once why she let them fax them if it was an online class. She just shrugged and said she thought they should have options. I had settled on a replay of the last 3 innings of the '85 World Series when I heard a horrible screeching and crunching noise. I reluctantly got up off the couch and went to fix the paper jam in the fax machine. I impatiently waited while the fax came through, and that's when I'd seen it. It had been, "Baby?" I said. "Do you want some more?" she interrupted. "Huh? No, I'm good." I smiled at her and put my fork back down on my empty plate. She started to get up to clear the table. "No, I'll get it," I said. "You cooked. Let's just sit and have some wine and enjoy each other's company." "All right," she said with a half smile. Her hair fell into her eyes as she reached for the bottle of wine. She removed the cork and, after a small struggle, brushed the short chestnut strand behind her hair. She carefully filled our glasses, then sat back in her chair with a look of discomfort. "What?" she asked with a slight grin. "What?" I replied. "Well, you've been staring at me since I started dinner." "Can't I look at you?" I asked. "Well, I mean..." She trailed off. "You're beautiful, baby," I told her. She blushed just slightly as she looked away from me. I knew there was so much going on in her head. I wondered if she'd told anybody, and I just wished that she would tell me what I already knew. I changed the subject. Maybe asking innocent questions might get her to open up a little. "So, how come you wanted tonight to be date night instead of Saturday?" "I don't know, Her dark eyes averted from mine again, and I thought I'd caught a faint sparkle of a tear in the corner of her left eye. She ran her fingertip around the edge of her nearly empty wine glass, the ones we'd also gotten as wedding gifts, until it sounded out a perfectly pitched hum. She shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I said gently. I've just had a rough couple of weeks and just wanted a break. You know, finals are next week and I'm just drained, that's all, she said. I knew the semester had been busier than usual since she was doing research for her thesis too, but she'd always thrived on academics. I was starting to get worried. She'd kept it from me now for over a week. How could you keep something like that to yourself, trapped inside? I felt a lump in my throat begin to form and I swallowed it down with the last drink from my glass. She was already pouring her 4th glass by that point. But when her glass was only a quarter full, the bottle was gone. I'm going to open up that Riesling, she said, as she haphazardly slid out of her chair. I'll get it, you sit. I'm fine, I can get it, she said firmly. I sensed her growing distress, compounded by the amount of wine she'd drunk by then. It took every bone in my body to yield, but I sat back down. Baby, I know you've been stressed with your thesis and getting ready for finals, but please, tell me what is up. What's really on your mind? I pleaded with my eyes. She gulped the last of her 5th glass of wine and refilled ours again. She spilled a little down the stem of her glass and slurped the sweet liquid off the base. She tried her best to avoid my penetrating eyes, but suddenly she looked up and sighed deeply. You know, don't you? How did you? She trailed off. Baby, I didn't go digging for it, if that's what you're saying. I felt myself tense up. How? Last week, my day off, that damn fax machine jammed, and when I went in to fix it, your results were coming through. You've known for 9 days? Why didn't you? You've known since then, too, I said. I was incensed at her uncanny ability to turn things around on me. Even this. Why didn't you tell me? I was waiting. She stammered. And then she lowered her head into her hands and began to sob. I got up from the table and gathered her into my arms. I half expected her to pull away and stiffen up, but instead she melted into my arms and began to cry harder. I didn't know how to, she managed between sniffs. I'm so scared. It's really bad. Maybe even... Shh, I said. I know, baby. I'm scared too. But you'll get through this. We'll get through this. The tears I'd been holding back began to flow along with hers. We held each other like that for what seemed like an hour, until we were started back to reality by the unwelcome shrill of her cell phone. I reached over and picked up the phone off the counter and looked at the screen. It's your mom. Does she know? Oh God, no. No one knows. She rejected the call and put her head in her hands. She drew her slender hands through her thick auburn-tinted hair. It's taken over a week to tell you, she said, and now we have to figure out how to tell Adam that I have cancer. She surrendered to her emotions and broke down into tears again. All I could do was hold her and brush the moistened locks of hair out of her eyes. I was scared for her, but in those 9 days that had passed, I hadn't figured out a way we'd tell Adam either. But tonight was date night, so we finished our wine and enjoyed one another's company.